All right, everyone. Welcome to our Climate Corps 101. Maybe you can make it full screen, buddy.
It's not letting me go any fuller screen than this. I'm sorry.
All right, cool. Now we know who has criterion in our friend group and our organizing group. Yeah, so we are Climate Justice Edmonton. We'll introduce ourselves a little bit more in a sec. But yeah, we've been working on this Climate Corps campaign for a couple of months. We're really excited to launch it more publicly with all of you here today. And we're hoping that you will grow this movement and make it your own as well over the next several months. Yeah, I would also like to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory and that you know, an important part of the work of the climate movement needs to be restoring sovereignty and land to Indigenous people here and everywhere else as well, because of the importance of Indigenous people for climate, and also because of the historic and ongoing injustices and genocide that happens. I am gonna say next slide.
Maybe before that, we'll do an intro of the other organizers on the call today. So I'm Juan. Nice to see everyone here. Thanks for being patient with a few kind of awkward tech moments. Never goes away. I'm an organizer with CJE, and I've been organizing with CJE since 2019. And me getting involved was in a moment just like this. It just was like the right spark, and I hope today gets to be a really great spark for a lot of you.
And yeah, hey, so my name's Steven, use he, him pronouns. Yeah, living on Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton. I'm a journeyman machinist with, I guess, like 13 years of experience working in oil and gas. Recently just got out of it, which is pretty awesome. And I've been an organizer with Climate Justice Edmonton, same as Juan, since like 2019. Pretty much joined right around the same time as him. And yeah, super stoked to be part of this campaign where we're like pushing for green jobs that I think are, you know, super critical to saving the climate.
And I guess I didn't really introduce myself. I just started talking, so I'm very sorry about that. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her, and I've also been organizing with CJE since 2019. That was a big moment of growth for us, and we're hoping that this one is that 2022 and 2023 are also going to be moments of growth for the climate movement and for again everything that we're fighting for. Because yeah, like we're all identifying, there was a big moment in 2019 that galvanized a lot of people. But COVID really cut us down a lot. Made us refocus and reprioritize like almost every other organization that you can think of, and but we're back and we're different and we're hoping to grow again. Today we are going to talk about what a climate corps is. I know it's kind of a weird word we haven't used before. We're going to talk about how the idea of a climate corps meets the present moment, all the weirdness included, and the history of the idea. We're going to introduce how we win the climate corps according to our theory of change, but also we are having a second webinar on November 24th called Climate Corps 102, How We Win It. And we'll be getting more into kind of the nitty gritty, how to organize to win in that session. We're going to talk about what we can do now in the next couple of weeks prior to that webinar, and as we're building our movement. There's going to be lots of opportunities for participation, so keep the chat open, and we'll do some breakouts as well so that everyone can get acquainted and make sure to speak your pieces when in this larger room. So we did this a little bit in the chat, but if you haven't put already your name, your pronouns, and why you're here, go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, and then maybe while you folks do that, I'll give you kind of a big idea, a big spiel on the Climate Corps. So here we have quite a great explanation of how we envision the Climate Corps. And the Climate Corps, as we envision it, is a public sector jobs that provides Albertans with meaningful work, earning as they earn thriving wages, and they build the infrastructures that they need to like have a fighting chance against climate crisis. But the narrative around the Climate Corps that we want to present to you is much bigger than just this simple definition. So maybe some of you are actually quite familiar with the concept of the Climate Corps. It's certainly not new to Alberta, although it might be new to a lot of you in the room today. But a Climate Corps is an idea that's been proposed as policy at the federal level. It's been proposed as policy across the country, and it's currently being proposed and in earnest being thought of as policy that's incoming in the United States. We'll get a little bit more into the history of that in a little bit, but we want to tell you how we envision the Climate Corps. Because what the moment calls for is an ambitious program that spends what it takes to win and that builds the institutions that we need to get the job done. So what a Climate Corps could be in Alberta and what a Climate Corps at the end of the day could be throughout the country is a massive jobs program that connects thousands of Albertans into green jobs, whether they're working in renewable energy, whether they're working in home retrofits, whether they're working in land reclamation, or for example, working in healthcare, working in the type of low carbon work that we need to invest in as the climate crisis worsens. Those are the types of jobs that we think are included within the Climate Corps. And we envision a world where we have a government-led and a government-funded program that tells the people, if you are ready to respond to the climate crisis, if you're looking for significant work in a new field, maybe in a field that you're already familiar with, or in a field that is completely new and completely foreign to you, we have a position for you, come get involved. That's the vision that we want to share with people, and that's the program that we want to win. And we also want to build towards a program that is ambitious and that completely changes some of the ways in which we think about work, right? It isn't just asking people to go into land reclamation just to be in the type of work that's paying them less than minimum wage at the end of the day, right? We want to give people real thriving jobs to offset the narrative that, much like myself and people that I grew up with, tells people in Alberta that you don't need to graduate high school, you don't need to do any of these things. You can go straight into like a field paying you $100,000 a year, right? Those jobs are going away, and people are no longer getting those promises. People are no longer getting those visions. So giving people the vision, giving people the hope that we can have better work, better jobs is something that a Climate Corps could really achieve. But we also see this as an opportunity for stronger equity within these fields. We see this as an opportunity to connect people to unionized labor, right? If we're thinking about public sector work, then we're thinking about connecting people to public sector unions. And we're thinking about connecting an entire new generation of workers to this type of work, right? There's a lot more that I could go on, but the general spiel, the general idea of a Climate Corps as we continue to develop it is really this. It's a promise and it's an invitation to thousands of Albertans across Alberta that they can fight climate change, that they can get good money to do so, and then they can build stronger, more resilient communities that actually have a fighting chance and that actually are rapidly decreasing emissions around, not just here, but across the world. So I'll pass it to Stephen.
Yeah. So I guess you might be asking, like, why a Climate Corps? And I guess why now? And I think, like, we all have seen grocery store prices right now. The price of groceries, gas, utilities are all going up. And at the same time, this is all because grocery store billionaires and fossil fuel companies are just making money and massive profits hand over fist. We're facing pretty outrageous wait times for healthcare, and we've got our brand new anti-vax premier who wants to, look harder and try and privatize our public services, especially our healthcare. She's talked about looking towards Uber as a way to deliver healthcare, which it sounds terrifying and frightening, and is definitely not a future I want to be in. We're seeing a lot more floods and fires, while politicians of all stripes are, greenwashing their solutions to these issues, putting forward ideas like, blue hydrogen, where we're going to build, or where we're going to burn natural gas to create hydrogen fuel, which, really is not the climate solution that we need. And people are leaving the province en masse. We're seeing the education system under threat, and better jobs are, outside of the province. We've seen oil and gas really take a downturn lately. We're no longer in that moment of boom because we're building infrastructure. We're now kind of, left with, no jobs in oil and gas because the oil and gas infrastructure doesn't need to be built anymore. And so we need alternatives for people to be able to live in this province. And a climate core is a really good answer to many of these problems. Next slide. That's you, Juan. And you're muted.
Trying to let the sidebar kind of come back into my screen so I can unmute. So you've all heard the vision. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. You've all heard the vision. You've all kind of gotten this idea of like why we envision the Climate Corps as being something that we can really fight for and earnestly earn in Alberta. So I would love to hear from folks, whether you want to put it in the chat, whether you want to raise your hand and kind of speak to it. How could a Climate Corps benefit you, your family, and your community? I don't know if there's anyone who has some thoughts that immediately jump to mind. We certainly have a few, but we'd love to hear from you first. Jay, go for it.
Well, like obviously just as a general thing, any climate action obviously benefits everybody, in Alberta, but then also the entire country, the entire planet. So, all climate action is great. And then more specifically, I think that it's high time that Alberta, like joins the modern world and, moves away from oil and gas production, and, into more, green industries and all that fun stuff. And then as like somebody who is, in high school, jobs are, in the future, in the foreseeable future. And so knowing that there are green, sustainable jobs that are out there as a possibility would be really assuring.
Yeah, that was really great. Thank you so much. Talian, I saw you you typed a comment, but would you be comfortable coming off mute and speaking to your comment? Feel free to say no also.
Sure, I don't know what else to add to it. I actually just retired and I'm substitute teaching now, but I know I've had students say that they don't know what to go into to continue living, especially in small, like I'm from Provost, it's a big oil community. So I kind of get a cross between, as I said, I'm retired, so many of my friends here in the community work in the oil field, and they feel like at this older point in their life, what else can they do for the remaining years till they retire? So they just stay in it. They also feel like it's not possible to change out of oil and gas. I don't know if it's just change is too hard, or they just are so entrenched in that way of life. They just can't, they just absolutely feel it's impossible for our future to not involve oil and gas almost entirely. And then I have the youth who, lots of them would love to live the same lifestyle, of course, that their parents have lived here in Alberta. Lots of money, lots of like the boom of oil you said, but they are realizing that they can't, or they can't do it for their whole rest of their career. And a lot of them don't know, especially males, I'd say, really don't know. I think they're kind of lost with what else they could possibly do. I think people here in this community, especially, I don't think anybody thinks anything else is possible. I don't know. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
It absolutely does. On. No, that was perfect. I love that you said, I don't know how much I would add, and then you gave an incredible answer, because I think you speak to something really important there, that there's a feeling of alienation and a feeling of where do we go next, that is really easy to tap into if you give someone a scapegoat. And so for us, a Climate Corps doesn't just present like real solutions to real problems, it also presents a beacon of hope, right? Like something that people can fight for and imagine within their communities as something that genuinely strengthens the communities that they live in. So yeah, thank you, great answer. Jim, I also saw you type. Am I calling you as well? If you want to kind of speak to your comment there.
Well, sure. Just Stephen, just by the by, have I seen you with Iron and Earth?
Yeah, you have.
Okay, so I made the connection there.
Yeah.
So right now, across a number of municipalities across North America, one of the biggest bottlenecks to doing new buildings, net zero or new to net zero, or sorry, near to, and all the retrofits needed, is actually skilled people. I've been talking to different trades folks, and they go, yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do. It's like, no, you don't. And so there's a ton of new training, and we're so short. Even the jurisdictions, say like Vancouver, that has a ton of these things happening, they can't move a lot of the projects on because they don't really have the people who are trained up. It's enormous, the huge need. I saw some projections that like 250,000 new green jobs over the next 15 years, and it's stuff like that. Or the cement. We've got a couple companies in Canada now who can produce low heat cement that actually sequesters carbon. Or the one, say, I was mentioning in steel production, they've got that where with electrolysis, you don't have to go to the huge temperatures that need the carbon. So there are ones that are proven. It's just a matter of get the billies there and get the people in who can start using them. We could be way further ahead and have people moving into some of these jobs are going to, even for the oil patch folks, are going to be great even compared to what they've been pulling in. So it's huge. It's just getting people aware and getting the companies, different levels of government to back it with some cash and get the people moving. So that's my spiel right off the top.
Thank you, Jim. I really like that as well. Okay, I'm going to keep us moving. Stephen and Allison, are there any kind of benefits that you think about that you would want to speak to before we continue?
I guess kind of one thing that I often think about too is, and I guess it kind of builds on what Jim was talking about, is that the fact that we've got a lot of research and development that has been done at universities that's just kind of kind of just sitting in the idea form right now, and we could really see a lot more implementation of these of new ideas if we had a reserve of workers that were ready to work on new technology that's currently being developed. Like Jim mentioned, we're lacking workers who are skilled and ready to work on this kind of stuff, and it would just be a huge leap forward for green technology innovation to have people who can just work at this rate right now.
For me, I always think about workers who are, whether they're early or mid-career or late career or whatever, who are feeling really alienated from jobs. They think that they understand that the things that they aren't doing aren't contributing to stuff that they believe in, and they feel a real disconnect between what they experience in their real life and then what work feels like. I see a Climate Corps as being an opportunity to connect people with really good jobs that are unionized, jobs that pay a thriving wage, jobs that are building towards a better future for everyone, whether that's in energy and retrofits or whether that's in already low carbon industries like education and healthcare, where people can, again, build connections with their jobs, with their fellow workers, and then also with that higher goal of a livable planet and a lower carbon future.
Thanks so much, both of you. I'm going to share again. One thing I'll talk about too, really briefly, is there's a lot of jobs that we haven't even imagined needing yet, right? One of the ones that I often talk to people about is not even 10 years from now, realistically, every summer at this point, we're losing a lot of people during heat waves. And we don't have anyone in positions that are ready to respond to emergencies like heat waves, nor floods, nor any extreme weather events, at least not for sustained periods of time. And so when I think about a climate corps, I also think about the type of work that would allow people to connect with their neighbors and ensure that people are thriving in their lives and in their response to climate change. Because there are some things that we have locked in. It doesn't mean we give up now, but it does mean we respond differently in years to come. And a climate corps is really central to that. Okay, Alison, I'll let you keep going.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's important to note that we're in the position we're in because of decades of climate delay from all political parties. So that the action that's required to make a real difference in the climate crisis is really significant. I think the same politicians and fossil fuel companies that denied and delayed climate action now say that action that meets the magnitude of the problem is idealistic and fiscally impossible. Just a couple of weeks ago, former Premier Rachel Notley was on the Bloomberg Odd Lots podcast, which is just like a liberal economics podcast, and they were asking her about the future of energy and about the economy and jobs in Alberta. And she said that you can't balance, basically taking climate action is a trade-off for workers and for the economy, and it's damaging to the economy and to workers to take climate action. She's still saying that in 2022, and it's shocking and really, I think, gives us a reason to lose faith in what should be the worker-focused party in this province. And so, of course, we've got a moral imperative for climate action, no matter what the cost is. And the Climate Corps can be a benefit that generates wealth for working people through employment, through disaster preparedness, through low-cost renewable energy. But oil and gas has received billions of dollars in funding over several decades that protects that industry at our expense. We need to demand even more funding to protect people and the planet. And it should come at the expense of oil and gas, but at minimum, it should just be a baseline investment in all of our futures. Big investment in infrastructure has paid off before, and it's really, really popular. For example, in 2019, when people were demanding a Green New Deal, one of the aspects of a Green New Deal that polls the highest is a jobs guarantee, which is effectively what we're asking for here. And further, going back to when we were all talking about the New Deal or the Green New Deal, during the New Deal between 1933 and 1939, massive investments in housing, public infrastructure, and employment programs pulled millions of people out of poverty and put an end to the Great Depression in the United States. This is just a proven investment, proven outcome. An example that I always like to go back to is the Tennessee Valley Authority, which was created to bring economic opportunity and electricity to Appalachia as part of the New Deal in World War II. So back in the 1940s and 50s, the Tennessee Valley Authority built hydropower infrastructure that still electrifies 10 million homes today. These investments in an energy future and their investments in jobs and in people and the economy and everything else. Previous iterations of climate and conservation corps have brought millions out of poverty and transformed infrastructure, public housing, and jobs training. The New Deal had the Civilian Conservation Corps. Now in 2022, people are in American states and in British Columbia, and potentially the federal government of the United States are creating a Civilian Climate Corps. And we're demanding for a scaled up version of that today. We do absolutely need to do better by workers as well as doing better by the climate.
Every time, sorry, the unmuting on here is really tough. So speaking then to maybe some of the origins of the Climate Corps, because like we mentioned earlier, maybe some of you are familiar with it, and Alison just touched on quite a lot of that. But during the New Deal era, the decision was made to invest in a civilian conservation corps, which was doing exactly what Allison was speaking about, right? It combated unemployment through conservation. It had disaster relief. It built outdoor recreation infrastructure. It built 30,000 fire lookouts. And the type of firefighting that was done during that era was some of the kind of the best level of firefighting, so to speak, for like, areas preserved and saved than at almost any other moment in American history. And obviously, the issues around fires, the issues around extreme weather are higher now than we've ever known. So there's a clear need for that. And the Climate Corps also had, the Conservation Corps also had a plethora of drawbacks, right? It was almost exclusively for white men. It was almost exclusively for people from specific regions, and it didn't always lead to a lifelong career in specific fields, right? So that's something that living in 2022 and fighting for these things in 2022 means that we can push for much better versions of what we're seeing, right? We can fight the same battles like fire, quite literally fire, while also deeply entrenching and centering prescribed burns and traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous nations and the ways in which we do that, right? And that's something that we're seeing done not just in the United States, anywhere from the Montana Conservation Corps to the California Conservation Corps, but we're also seeing groups like Youth Climate Corps in British Columbia, which is an NGO doing exactly this type of work. They're kind of based on this idea as well, but their goal long-term is also to be government-led, to scale up to the point where we don't actually have to limit our positions to 12 people to 4 months, right? We want to see a position for anyone that wants one, and we want to see 2-year terms where people can just like dedicate a good chunk of their life and kickstart a career in a really, really wholesome and strong way. And as Allison mentioned as well, this year, the Inflation Reduction Act actually included a lot of the language and a lot of the vision of a civilian climate corps within that act, right? And it dedicated quite a few $1 million to it, and that was a start. But the type of commitments that are needed in the United States are significant, but they go so far, right? And the commitments that we want to see here are also significant, and they'll also go equally far, if not more.
So yeah, so this is early days of the Climate Corps. You're here at Climate Corps 101, and this is where we're starting to build a movement. And part of building a movement is, bringing in more people than are just in this Zoom meeting right now. And so as we think about that, we got to think about who we need on our side and who are we needing to win over. And I think the most critical people that we need to bring in are our fellow workers. Every worker in every industry is going to be critical to us winning a Climate Corps. So if you work in oil and gas, if you work in hospitality, if you work in research, you work in care work, literally anything, we are going to need your help winning this, because we're going to need to build a movement that is completely unignorable and undeniable for anybody in power. We'll definitely get more into that in our 102 session, but I think that's going to be like getting more worker power is part of progressive movements. It's always been the history of progressive movements, and this one is literally no different. Another key group that we're going to need to bring in on this is unions as well. We all know that a unionized workforce is going to be critical to ensuring that a Climate Corps is not just recreating the exploitative conditions of the current economy. We're going to need organized labor to be a part of this, because they have the ability to organize workers. They have the experience to make sure that working conditions are good for people, and we're definitely going to need them on side. And I think it's a pretty easy win for unions as well. They can show their members like, this is a way that you can support your family. These are good jobs for you, And yeah, they're pretty critical to bringing on more workers as well. Finally, we also need to make sure that we're bringing along government. So this is, bringing along whatever party will listen and support us, and make sure that they are following our lead. So, we're going to need representatives at every level: municipal, federal, provincial, and we're going to need them to implement a worker-focused climate core that takes effective action. So we don't want a climate core that is just catering to the needs of business, but we want a climate core that is catering to the needs of workers and everyday people. So yeah, I think, as we're building this movement, I think, keeping in the back of our minds that these are the people that we want to bring along is going to be super, super important.
That's still you, Stephen.
Sorry. Yeah. So this is the breakouts. So we're all going to break out into little groups and kind of chat about what we would like to see in our communities, what we would like to see a climate core do in our communities. So what kind of jobs are you thinking that would be really helpful out in Provost? What kind of projects do you think would be really important in Edmonton? Yeah, so you can make it specific to your location or Alberta, but I think this is just kind of a good time for us to kind of get the juices flowing and really start thinking about what we all want to see a climate core do. So I think once those are ready, we'll probably go in.
Yeah, I'm assigning people now. Maybe while I do that, if people want to take like a minute to write some thoughts down, so that you're not like going to the breakout room and not knowing where to start, feel free to take a minute. We're gonna get a minute to assign these rooms.
And this definitely doesn't need to be like the most perfect, well-researched, thing. This is just community people talking about community ideas. This is where it all starts.
Yeah, it's gonna take one extra minute.
Hi, sorry I'm late, but here I am. I was listening on my phone, so I was actually able to catch most of it.
Oh, good. I was worried you thought you were joining at an awkward time when no one was talking.
Yeah. Luckily, I just turned it off on my phone, so I was like, okay, we're waiting for the breakout rooms.
Luckily, everyone gets to enjoy a long, drawn-out silence. Thank you so much for your work, Juan.
So I decided to just poke in and say hi. So.
Okay, I'm opening rooms now. Thank you for being here, Hannah. I'll add you to breakout room in just 1 second.
Hello.
I think there might still be, are we getting our last session joining us here?
Keep going, Juan, keep going.
I was talking about energy poverty. Yeah, like retrofitting homes who, people who pay a lot for energy and who still live in really cold houses because their houses are built, 200 years ago. I guess maybe not here, but yeah.
All right, Juan, can you share your screen again? All right, so how do we win? all of the great ideas that we talked about. I know we had a lot of fun in our group talking about housing, talking about retrofits, talking about transportation. So to plug, the QR code that you see on your screen is a registration link for our November 24th How We Win webinar. So that's the part 2 of today's session. But the summary, a little spoiler alert, we win by having strong local networks. That's everyone here today, here in Edmonton, and all in your communities across the province as well. Coordinated actions across the whole province. So let's work together. People power by building the campaign that we actually want to win, taking all those ideas that we just talked about in breakup and them into action. Sustained pressure. So we've been only doing this for a couple of months, but we're not giving up. You know, we're seeing this through to the end. And also by having fun. So, you know, it's really the way that you stay involved in movements, especially ones that feel like existential threats like climate change, or where the issues that are facing you are really, really big. It is 100% about the friends you make along the way to actually see yourselves coming back every week. So that's the quick little TLDR for 2 weeks from now. Next slide.
Yeah, do people need a second to scan the QR code? It'll take you straight to registration for the 24th.
I actually don't see the QR code. Oh, wait, never mind. It's behind your icon. My bad.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, it's behind my icon, so you got to move me around a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. We have another QR code on there, just as a spoiler alert. Yeah, and I think that's Stephen. Oh, where'd Stephen go? Oh,
He's
Stephen.
muted.
Maybe you're muted, buddy.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I think I muted myself accidentally. So what can you do right now? So we're gonna try this new thing. It's called Discord. It's, you know, a platform that it's kind of like Twitter but less awful. Like, you know, we can basically all chat together and hang out, have like a good time. It's, you know, if you remember forums, it's very similar to a forum. So yeah, we've got some different channels in there focused on region specific organizing. So there's a channel there for Edmonton. I think there's a channel for Calgary. If you don't see your city or area or region in there, send a note to me or, you know, any of the mods, and we will definitely get that added for you. Yeah, it's going to be the best way to kind of keep in touch with things as they go. Yeah, so Discord so we're going to be trying that out. Also, another thing you could do is just kind of think about like who you want to organize with. Like, who do you know in your life that you think would be excited about building a hub in your community? Maybe you got some coworkers, maybe your bowling team, you know, whoever you think would be excited about doing some cool climate action. Tell them about it and ask them what they think. Ask them if they have any cool ideas. Yeah, you know, also, you know, think about, you know, thinking back to the slide earlier about who we need to work with. If you're a union member, you know, maybe start talking to people in your union, fellow coworkers, all that kind of stuff. If you're part of like an electoral district association, start talking to other people in your political parties. Yeah, so that's what we can do right now. There's that QR code up in the corner as well if you want to try and scan that. We'll probably put the links in the chat as well. Here's the Zoom. And next slide. So yeah. Do you want to go on?
Go for it.
Sweet. Okay, cool. I'll take it home. So yeah, next steps, you know, join the Discord. That's the QR code for that again. We're also going to be having a postering session on November 19th in Central Edmonton. So, you know, we'll be meeting up in person. talking to each other, and kind of getting to know each other and putting up posters around the city, to help spread the word, not just on the internet, but actually in real person. So yeah, November 19th in central Edmonton. More details on that probably will be on social media, Discord, all the channels. So probably even on the email list. So keep an eye out for that. More info to come. And also Climate Corps 102, How We Win. So that's going to be on Thursday, November 24th. We're doing that from 6 to 7, so 2 weeks from today. Registration link is in the chat for that. That's that US06 web.zoom, that whole string of letters. And oh yeah, and also Roger in my breakout group had mentioned that he's from Council of Canadians, and they are doing an event kind of about just transition and the history, or the basically where we go for the future, especially regarding tailings and coal. So it looks like Roger just dropped that in the chat. Yeah, they're doing an in-person and a Zoom event for that. Yeah, I don't know, Roger, do you want to
Richard,
come off? Richard, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
and no problem with that. I kind of like Roger. Anyhow, yeah. So the link is there, and this is a third of on our series to try to halt the dumping of the tailings into the Athabasca River. So you can go online, or we've got lots of space at the TELUS Center next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Please register though.
Cool. And that's the TELUS Center at the U of A campus, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Perfect.
87th Avenue. We'll have a bunch of people talking about under the topic of the just transition, which I think is kind of relevant to what you guys are doing, trying to organize here.
Sweet. So much stuff happening.
All right, thanks so much. We're going to stay on the call for another few minutes if people want to chat more or they've got questions. But yeah, in the meantime, get on the Discord, sign up for next week or 2 weeks from now. And we hope to see everyone who's in Edmonton on the 19th in person.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Not to spoil things, but usually we get a little hot drink or a beer after. So this is part of how we make friends and how we win. It's strategy to have fun after.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah. Glad to have you here.
It's so much fun to get to connect in this kind of way again. We haven't had a public call in a while.
Yeah.